The Hoodie, Bill Belichick, third on the all-time wins list and still climbing. 31 playoff wins, the most ever, 9 Super Bowl appearances, and 6 Lombardi trophies, both coaching records, and nearly all of it achieved with one franchise, the New England Patriots. But just how close was Belichick to carving out a legacy elsewhere, and what would have happened if he did? Well, it all begins with the poaching of a division rival and a very uncomfortable resignation that, with a slight twist, would allow for a totally different reality. So let's roll it back to the dawn of the century. Handpicked by Bill Parcells to succeed him in New York, then Jets defensive coordinator Bill Belichick was automatically promoted to head coach on January 3rd, 2000, the same day Parcells surprisingly retired. 24 hours later and moments before he was officially introduced as head coach, he famously scribbled the phrase, "I resign as HC of the NYJ," on a sheet of paper, passed it along to team officials, and promptly followed up by announcing the decision during a lengthy and uncomfortable news conference. A little more than 3 weeks later, he was head coach of the New England Patriots. But what if the concerns over the ownership change that hastened his exit never scared off Bill, or if Robert Kraft had looked elsewhere to replace Pete Carroll? Well, I'm here to tell you the greatest quarterback in NFL history never would have won a record 7 rings. The greatest dynasty in NFL history never would have existed. The Jets would have a Madden cover athlete, among much more, and some of the biggest names in the sport over the past 2 decades would have carved out careers in totally different cities. Just hear me out. The Patriots eventually landed Belichick from the Jets when Parcells agreed to trade his coach-in-waiting for a first-round choice in the 2000 NFL Draft. But what if Parcells had not agreed to the deal? New England had already identified then Jaguars DC Dom Capers as a top choice for their vacancy and were prepared to offer him the job when he was scheduled to fly to Foxborough to interview. However, a snowstorm kept Capers grounded in Florida, thus delaying the interview by 24 hours, extending Kraft's search and allowing him the chance to land Belichick. But in this branch of the TDN multiverse, there is no snowstorm, and the stalemate with the Jets over compensation in the proposed trade for Belichick wages on. Kraft, eager to hire his next head coach, decides to pull the trigger with Capers, who aces his interview after arriving in New England, this time right on schedule. With the Pats no longer in the market, Belichick and Parcells bury the hatchet, and the Hoodie comes back to take over as Jets head coach. New England keeps the 16th overall pick that went to New York to acquire Belichick, but the Jets still shipped disgruntled star receiver Keyshawn Johnson to Tampa Bay for the 13th and 27th picks, leaving them with 3 first-rounders, including their own, at 18. But instead of Chad Pennington at 18th, select Syracuse's Keith Bulluck before trading back from 27 and out of the first round. Their trade partner? San Francisco. The 49ers had done their due diligence on Pennington leading up to the draft IRL, sending their 35th overall pick and 2001 first-rounder to New York to move up and select the Marshall signal caller. Pennington had multiple in-depth pre-draft interviews with the 49ers and felt like he was going to end up there before the Jets took him in real life. This time, he heads to the Bay Area. Later in the draft, the Jets still land Lavernius Coles in the 3rd round, but with no Belichick in New England, there's no shot in the dark by the Patriots on NFL Combine underperformer Tom Brady at pick 199. He instead goes home to the West Coast 6 picks later to the San Diego Chargers. Now with Belichick installed as head coach, Vinny Testaverde under center, Curtis Martin in the backfield, and contributions from first-round rookies Abraham and Bullock, the Jets finished 10-6, second in the AFC East behind the Dolphins, and in front of the Colts at 9-7, the Bills at 8-8, and the cellar-dwelling Patriots at 3-13. Following a wild-card round exit at the hands of the division rival Dolphins, the Jets, with an aging Testaverde and a young promising defense, and an impressive coaching job from Bill Belichick, identify Virginia Tech's Michael Vick as the quarterback of their future, aggressively outbidding the Atlanta Falcons to move up to number 1, sending the 9th overall pick acquired from San Francisco the year prior and pick 22 to the Chargers, who, despite a historically lousy season under first-round bust Ryan Leaf, had been encouraged by the early progress of rookie Tom Brady, who earned some starts late in the year as the franchise threw in the towel on Leaf. A Week 17 win over Pittsburgh was enough to convince management to put its chips on Brady going forward. And with Brady at the helm, the Chargers feel no urge to select Purdue's Drew Brees, who gets to go home to Texas after being selected by the Dallas Cowboys in the second round. In New York, well, these were the days when being the first overall pick didn't automatically mean you started right away. So it's Testaverde leading the Jets out of the tunnel Week 1. But after an underwhelming 1-2 start to the season, the clamoring for Vic gets too loud to ignore, and the talented rookie takes over prior to Week 4. He develops a rapid connection with Coles and Wayne Trebet, and with Curtis Martin to dictate the pace of the game, the Jets win 11 of their final 13, finish 12-4, and win the AFC East. Following Drew Bledsoe's Week 2 injury, the Patriots, with no clear succession plan, stumble through the first half of the season, though Bledsoe returns late in the year, and the Patriots finish third in the AFC East at 7-9. In the coming years, the Jets develop into a perennial contender in the AFC, while Tom Brady's Chargers find themselves in the conversation for an AFC West crown each season. But it's not until the 2004 NFL Draft that the landscape is irrevocably changed. The Oakland Raiders, with the first overall pick, execute a draft night deal with the Giants for Eli Manning, eventually ending up with Miami Hurricane safety Sean Taylor instead. With Drew Bledsoe still riding it out in Foxborough, Buffalo, desperate for a QB, trades up with Washington to select Ben Roethlisberger, leaving Phillip Rivers for the Steelers at 11. That season is the coronation for the Jets. Led by Vic and Belichick, they defeat Donovan McNabb and the Eagles in Super Bowl 39. That Philadelphia team never had Terrell Owens after he developed a nice rapport with Chad Pennington in San Francisco. That Niners squad never has the first overall pick in 2005. It's the Dolphins instead, as Nick Saban zeroes in on Utah's Alex Smith as Miami's franchise quarterback. Even here, all these franchises still kick themselves as Aaron Rodgers tumbles all the way right back down to Green Bay. Tugging at some draft strands, the Jets are never in position to draft Darrelle Revis in 2007. He ends up in Cincinnati, having busted on Jamarcus Russell. The Raiders somehow watch Matt Ryan fall into their lap in 2008. And with Vic leading the way for gangrene, that means no Mark Sanchez and no butt fumble. He ends up in Tampa Bay, and the Falcons finally land a franchise quarterback in 2011 with first overall pick Cam Newton. The Jets, led by Vic, go on to win 2 more Super Bowls with their stout defense and electrifying QB, battling the Ben Roethlisberger-led Bills atop the AFC East year in and year out. Big Ben gets Buffalo their first and second Lombardi trophies. Out west, Tom Brady and the Chargers are on the wrong end of a few of those AFC title games. Brady doesn't get over the hump to win his first ring until Chad Pennington's career tapers off in San Francisco in 2010. Brady leaves San Diego to go home to the Bay. And finally, one of the greatest quarterbacks the sport has ever seen cements his legacy as he and fellow Michigan man Jim Harbaugh steer San Francisco to a Super Bowl 47 triumph over the Baltimore Ravens, as Brady lives out a childhood dream by winning a title with the team he rooted for as a kid, just like Joe Montana. Brady's still there, still playing with Kyle Shanahan, as the Niners become the league's modern-day dynasty. Crazy, right? But not at all that outrageous. And that's why I asked you to just hear me out. I'm Mark Whiteman with the Draft Network. Thanks for listening. What NFL rabbit hole do you want us to peer down next? Rate, review, subscribe, and leave your comments. We're always looking for more TDN multiverses to travel.